Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Arell, and I've been thinking today what I would like to discuss with you all. And I think it has to do with the middle of the year, essentially. You might be watching this a little past the middle of the year. The kind of review that I do over what has occurred, progressed, transformed in the last 6 months. So I do a January kind of check-in where I develop a word for the year. And in that video, the word that I chose, I think, was grit. And part of grit for me and how that's showed up in like the last 6 months has had to do with how I've reconstituted the way that I'm living on a day-to-day basis. Now, I've always been a person that is pretty aggressive when it comes to filling my time, but I've tried to do something a little bit different with my time, which includes getting up early and maybe too early sometimes. But part of that, and that is where I would put grit in terms of thinking about setting a goal, doing it, executing it, enacting the discipline that enables it to any particular goal to be achieved. But getting up early is definitely one of those things that helps me. But generally, in the past, I would get up early and immediately go to work. And what I've been trying to do is have the early morning time, and early morning for me is about 4:30 or 5, to be really thinking time about something that I'm working with in any particular area of my life. And the way that I envision those areas in terms of thinking has to do with my academic life, which is teaching, my writing life, so what projects am I working on related to publishing, and then my personal life, and especially related to dreams, actually. I track those. It's very exciting and actually very nice to look back on, because I often don't remember what I dreamed. And then when I go back and review those, which I do maybe once every 3 or 4 months, I can see a mental progression. And so that's something important to me. And that's the way that I do that. There's lots of different ways you can track your own progress in terms of your thinking about your interior life. And I guess that's what it comes down to, like how I attend to my interior life. It makes me think of St. Teresa d'Avila and her work on what she calls the interior castle, and some work that's actually been done around that, which thinks about your interior life as a house, and you move through the rooms, and that gives you, in the meditation of moving through these rooms, some enlightenment about your own life and your connection. In St. Teresa's framework would be connection to God. Mine would be a connection to greater meaning or purpose, and that can be envisioned as God, but I also think it has space to be envisioned as a more connective life to the greater universe. This makes me reflect, as I'm talking to you pretty loosely, on what I have planned now for the second half of my year, and it's going to begin with some hiking in northern Italy. And I'm very, very excited to be on a precipice, sort of up high, where I can see vastness in some way and then also experience smallness in that moment. I have done that briefly before in the south of France, but this scale of which I think I'll experience this in Italy is a little bit larger. Let me back up just a little bit. I started with the word grit, thinking about what grit meant. For me, one way that I've employed that word in my year has had to do with my sleep schedule. There's been some other behaviors that I've changed, things that I actually developed during COVID that I wasn't feeling super great about, even around food and leisure time, that became kind of this globby mess that I wanted to compartmentalize, is a good way to say it, or to say, okay, this is the time for play, and when I want to work, I really want to work and stay a little bit more focused. There was some leftover for me from COVID, and so I feel like I've definitely taken care of that. Another thing that I've done is competed in a ballroom dance competition, which I have done that before when I was much younger. And so it was a challenge to get out on the floor in New York with a more competitive field of dancers at my age and just go out and do it. And I have to say, it has inspired the rest of my year, which has to do with the experience of joy. So I think I've kind of shifted my word. Grit has its place. I want to maintain the discipline that I have created over the last 6 months. But I also really think that joy, and the joy that I felt out on that dance floor, even though maybe I wasn't the greatest, although I did win. But let me just preface that competition is relative because it has to do with different levels, stages, ages, and everything. So win is relative. But anyway, funny, I guess. I am, though, thinking about making this transition to what does it mean to experience joy and elation, and in a way that has to do with myself and the experiencing and facilitating joy within myself through my personal experiences that may involve other people, but which aren't fueled or dependent on other people. It may be dependent on relationships, but not on, say, like a particular person. I think there's one more thing I want to say about joy, and it's a hard word for me, actually, because it's a little bit amorphous. I think it has a connection to happiness that maybe, I don't know, if you go in through a Buddhist framework, seeking to be happy is a little bit linked too closely to material life. And joy has some other quality that, again, depends on how we cultivate an interior life that's connected to the exterior world, other people, other things, other places. I also think joy is hard to attain without consciousness and presence. And I actually, in creating my syllabi for my new classes, am introducing a section or several sections from the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu's book on joy. Definitely have to take a look at the video with them laughing together, because their connection and the experience they have of each other is full of joy. So that's what I'm going for, and I'm thinking about it in terms of how I facilitate a sense of joy within myself and draw from my personal experiences, even experiences alone, a sense of joy, how I connect with joy in relationship to other people, dependent on what they give me. Like, dependency on others, I think, is another conversation that we could have, and maybe I'll do that in a later video, because I think dependency is important, because I don't think we live in bubbles. But I also want to be able to facilitate a sense of joy without relying on someone else. And so I guess what I mean by that is that even if someone else is not giving me what I would like from them or what I feel like I need from them, that I can still find joy even in the conflict that might occur in a relationship, because the relationship itself facilitates a sense of joy. And then thirdly, I would say that there's some joy that comes from experiencing things for the sake of experiencing them for myself. And that's a gift also, and links to joy in some way for me. So thanks.